Hi everyone. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Warren Buffett's top 8 pieces of financial advice. And without further ado, let's get started. Okay, before we get started, just one more step. If you're enjoying videos like this, financial advice from the richest people in the world, you can go ahead and consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out. And also, there is a link in the description to all of my socials. So I did research for about an hour or so. I watched a bunch of videos, lots of interviews with Warren Buffett in them, lots of compilations of Warren Buffett's advice as well. And what I found was that he recommended 8 things that kind of were in almost every interview. These are very common things that he recommends. So let's go ahead and start with the first one. The first one that Warren Buffett recommends to do with your finances is to master your fees. And when Warren Buffett says this, the thing that I think about personal finance, right? Banking fees in particular. Before I used to be with one of the major banks in Canada known as CIBC, and that bank basically charged me fees to keep my money with them, right? So I had an account with them. It was actually the Smart account, which you can see here. This is the CIBC Smart account, and they can charge you up to about $17 a month just for you to keep your own money with them. And if you don't want to pay the $17 a month, what you have to do then is have a minimum balance of $4,000. And as I started to get more and more in tune with money and started getting in tune with financial independence, I said, hey, listen, $4,000 in a checking account, which earns minimum interest, barely any interest, and it's just basically parked there to avoid getting charged $17. Like, I couldn't believe the amount of money that you can make in a $4,000 investment in some kind of stock or dividend paying stock that you understand, or index fund that you understand. Like, you could be making so much more money with the $4,000 that they ask you to park here in the account, earning basically nothing. So I got rid of that account. I was paying upwards of, I think at the time, for me, it was about $15 a month. It looks like they have since raised it. But I have switched to kind of the more online, I guess, more independent banks, and one of those is EQ Bank. And with EQ Bank, the interest rate is higher. At one point I was making, I think, $7 a month just to keep my money in the account. They were actually paying me to keep my money in the account instead of charging me $15 a month to have my money with them. They were paying me. And in addition to these smaller independent online kind of banks, most of the things that you can get that might be charges with the major banks, they're actually free. Okay, and there's also the major thing for me is that there's no minimum balance. Okay, again, with CIBC it was $4,000 that you have to keep with them just so that you don't get charged this fee. Another bank that I use frequently, I use two banks, EQ Bank and also Tangerine, which is in Canada. And the main reason the interest isn't that high, but the main reason again is it's a very good daily bank. Okay, so a lot of the things that you can get with this bank, which might be charged with other major banks, like these are just free. Okay, so lots of things are free with these kind of more online independent banks. So that's what I think about when Warren Buffett says manage your fees or master your fees. That's what I think about. So I went from paying $15 a month to keep my money in a bank account to them paying me about $7 a month. Okay, so I've kind of reversed it on them. The second thing that Warren Buffett recommends is not to get a credit card for the purpose of not going into debt, right? And I think that this piece of advice should come with an asterisk, because I think it should come with a grain of salt, right? Because I don't think this applies for everyone, right? I think it applies for the person who tends to go on shopping sprees, tends to kind of maybe buy frivolous knickknacks, they can't control their spending. And there's another very prominent Christian financial advisor, Dave Ramsey, and he also teaches this, not getting any credit cards. I think for me personally, because I am a minimalist and I don't spend that much money on things that I can't use, everything that I buy, I try to make sure that I need it before I buy it, and things that I don't need, I try to donate it or I sell it. So And the thing about this credit cards is that I'm also earning points. So I'm buying things that I need. Okay, like for example, if like a bus pass or something, or if you have a car, then you have to buy gas for your car. Okay, those are necessary costs of having a car. So I'm buying things that I need, but in addition to buying the things that I need, I'm getting points, right? So I have an American Express credit card, for example, and I can convert my points, let's say, into $100. I can get $100 prepaid credit card, or I can get $200 or $500. So I can convert the points into actual cash value, and I get the points by spending on things that I'm already going to buy anyways. So do I necessarily agree with this advice? I don't, but again, Warren Buffett recommends it, and he says it in many of his interviews, not to indulge in credit cards. Okay, so take that as you will. The third thing that Warren Buffett recommends is to understand financial language. And he says that financial language, talking in terms of money, should be like English to you. Okay, so it should be like your first language. Okay, if you don't understand the language of money, then it will be harder for you to make money, because there will be ways for you to make money, but you just don't understand, okay? Because you don't understand the terms, you don't understand the definitions. This is something that you should gradually educate yourself on. You want to start picking up personal finance books. There's so many top 10 personal finance books on Google, and I recommend that you go ahead and look at them, and you'll find that there are terms in those books that you don't understand. For example, I wrote this guide after reading 14 or something personal finance books in 2020, and there are lots of things that I didn't understand. What is a treasury bond? I have no idea. Hedge fund, commodities. What is amortization? I mean, some of these things may sound simple, but if you're just learning finance from scratch, you don't know what's the difference between a Roth IRA and a IRA. I know there's a difference. I don't know off the top of my head, but you see, there are some things here that I don't understand. I'm still learning about. Even in investing, I remember seeing one of the terms was puts and calls. In investing, what's a put? What's a call? I mean, there are lots of things that you can learn, and if you don't learn them, then there will be ways for making money that you just don't understand because you don't understand the terms. So again, Warren Buffett recommends understanding the language of money as much as possible. Okay, number 4, Warren Buffett recommends to master your taxes, right? So the government here in Canada, it's recommended that you save about 30% of your income. Um, and that's very simple. I mean, most people will use like a TurboTax or like a QuickTax, and those are pretty simple, I think, to use. But I think where mastering your taxes will pay you dividends. Oh, that's kind of a pun. Mastering your taxes will, come in handy is if you have a complicated tax return. So if you own real estate, or you're self-employed, or you're doing some contract work, or, there's some things you want to write off on your tax return, this is where you might want to get a professional accountant and have them look at your finances and see where they can drop down the costs. Is there any financial fine print that you don't understand and that you didn't know about, that the accountant would know about, and therefore getting your tax costs lower? Okay, so that's all great. If you even just want to try this, I wrote as a suggestion, this is my personal suggestion, if you have complicated taxes, I recommend getting a professional accountant for just 1 year. See if they lower your costs for taxes, and if they don't, then I guess continue doing it the same way you've always done. But if they do, then getting a professional accountant, depending on how much savings you get, you'll make that decision for yourself. The fifth thing that Warren Buffett recommends is dollar cost averaging. Okay, and if you don't know what dollar cost averaging is, that's basically to put the same amount of money into your investing account and invest in stocks every month. Okay, regardless of the month it is, it's always the same amount. You've defined it in your mind, and it's a habit that you do every month. Okay, and the reason for this is because you don't want to invest $10,000. Let's say you see here when the stock was $11.25. That is when the stock here on this chart is the most expensive. So imagine if you put all of your money in this particular month when it was the most expensive, you paid the most money for this particular stock. However, if you put the same amount of money over let's say the course of a year, right, and the stock is fluctuating in price, you will pay an average price of, let's say in this case it's 10.48, okay, which is not the most expensive. Again, the most expensive that it was 11.25. It also won't be the cheapest in the year. The cheapest in the year in this case was 9.95. And that's fine. You'll just get somewhere in the middle. But dollar cost averaging just makes sure that you won't be paying the most amount of money for the stocks that you want, right? Because you'll basically just get the average. You'll even out. If you use dollar cost averaging, which is putting the same amount of money into your investing account every month. Okay, that's the concept of dollar cost averaging. Okay, number six, the sixth thing that Warren Buffett recommends is to invest in S&P 500 index funds as a basic investment for every single person. Okay, of course, Warren Buffett has lots of different investments. He has Berkshire Hathaway, and he has large portfolios, billions and billions of dollars in many different things. But for the layman person, he recommends at least investing in the S&P 500. If you don't know, the S&P 500 is basically the American stock market as a whole. It covers the top 500 largest companies in the United States. And as you can see, since its inception, it just continually goes up very regularly. And it's kind of like a trend with the S&P 500 that it goes up and up and up. And so that's why he recommends this. This is the trend, is that your money will keep growing over time. Okay, the seventh thing that Warren Buffett recommends is to only invest in what you understand. So aside from the S&P 500, only invest in companies that you regularly follow, that you are somehow involved in. If you play video games, maybe look at some video game companies. If you like cars, what are the best car companies to invest in? Something you understand, right? You don't want to invest in something that you're not following. It could go down in price and you would never know. Okay, so definitely want to invest in something that you understand the market. You understand the future of the market and where it's going, and that will be a lot better for you in the long run. Okay, number eight, the last thing that Warren Buffett recommends in terms of top 8 advice. Okay, he recommends that you invest in yourself, and that is one of the greatest investments that you can make. What I would recommend for that is a great starting point is to start going to your local library. For me, I am fortunate to live in a certain suburb of Toronto, but also I work in the city of Toronto. So I'm part of 2 libraries. Okay, this is the Toronto Library here. They have an online, website and app. It's called Libby, and here on my smartphone, I can borrow books and borrow movies and ebooks and all that good stuff. And I live in the suburbs, okay, and they have their own library system. It's called Hoopla, okay, and they have their own catalog, okay, of movies and books and ebooks. So I use both. I'm very fortunate because then maybe if there's a long hold line for maybe the books that I want are checked out here, they might not be checked out in Hoopla. Okay, so I use both, and that is everything. Okay, those are the top 8 pieces of financial advice recommended by Warren Buffett after watching many, many interviews on YouTube. Okay, and here I have some extra tips which you can take a look at if you like. I'll leave a link to this document in the description below, but also here you can see I have a YouTube channel, and this video will be also in audio format on Spotify. And please remember to follow all the socials, and then I made a bit.ly link to this particular document if you want to go ahead and take a look at it on your own time. This link will also be in the description below. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.